Emerson, Lake and Palmer, sometimes known as ELP to their friends, were a progressive rock supergroup with Keith Emerson, who'd come from a band called The Nice, Greg Lake, who'd come from a band called King Crimson, that some people have heard of, and Carl Palmer, who'd come from The Crazy World of Arthur Brown and Atomic Rooster. They were effectively active for the 1970s, with several reincarnations and reimaginings since then. So Palmer played drums, Lake played bass and guitars, and Emerson played keyboards, mostly a hammered organ, but synths and all sorts of keyboards he could get his hands on. This effectively means that for a lot of their music, there were a trio of bass, drums, and organ, with Greg Lake also singing at times. So their most recognisable sound is organ-led complexity. They have been known to use guitars at various points, but they've definitely got a keyboard focus. They were also particularly influenced by classical music, and applying classical styles to much of their music and adapting classical classics, so things written by classical composers, into a kind of mixture between classical and rock. As with many progressive rock bands, what they did had a tendency towards being complex and very musically accomplished. Possibly more than any other band, they came under attack in the late 70s for being pompous and pretentious. And often they do feel like they were a vehicle, particularly for Keith Emerson to show off. I think Keith Emerson's fingers must have had some kind of speed-up, power-up to them, because he was an absolutely incredible keyboard player from quite a young age. Hi, my name's Dan, and welcome back to yet another of my reviews. So, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, ELP. I have had fairly mixed feelings about them as a band, and I still do, I think. So, I didn't really discover them in my youth. I had a big discovery, helped by a great friend of mine, of progressive rock in my mid to late teens, but ELP weren't part of that, so I wasn't exposed to them at that point. And I kept seeing their albums in shops and occasionally thought about getting one, but never actually succumbed to getting one. So I came to them later. There was a point, which is now about 10 years or so ago, where I realised that a lot of the old stuff that I really liked came under this banner of progressive rock, and so started a big exploration of prog rock. So I've expanded my knowledge and my listening hugely of prog rock, and of course ELP have been part of that. And I would say I've got quite a lot of respect for them. I don't necessarily find them things that I want to listen to that often, and I think that's because they do sometimes have a tendency to come across as quite self-involved and pompous. Now, I know that this is progressive rock, so prog rock isn't it all that way inclined? And I guess yes, but maybe they were a bit more so than some bands. So anyway, I must have heard this album before, I would think, but I don't actually remember hearing it or doing so. It was recorded in Newcastle City Hall, so that's actually my nearest decent-sized concert venue, so I've seen lots of things at the City Hall. So there's a kind of nice feeling about that, to be listening to an album that's this old and this well respected and recorded somewhere that I've been. There aren't many of these albums that have been recorded places that I've been. And it's an adaptation. Almost all of it is an adaptation of Mussorgsky's Modest Mussorgsky's suite Pictures at an Exhibition. And it blends classical. So obviously it's inspired by a classical piece. It uses some of the music from that classical piece, not all by any stretch of the imagination. It's also got rock in there, a definite use of kind of the drums and bass and the kind of the rock sound, the Hammond organ going, and there's a lot of synth in here as well. And this is 1971, so synths were quite early. In the whole kind of life of synths here, and they made some incredible noises out of that. But there's an element of avant-garde here as well, and there's some kind of synth sound effecty noisy stuff. But the whole thing works as a piece, so from start to finish. Then there's a short Nutcracker-inspired encore at the end, which is also quite nice. But the full piece is, I actually really liked it. I thought it was effective. There's a lot of great playing in here, but it's very nicely planned, I think. It's played well. I mean, superb timing and precision and all those sorts of things that you expect from prog rock. And I think there's a lot to dig into. I only listened through it twice, which is what I normally do for a review, but I feel like I want to kind of put this on the back burner as one that I want to listen to again a few times, because I did really like the overall feel and impression and the way it flowed as a piece of music. I bet it was a great concert to be at. So I loved it. What do you think? I'd love to hear from you what you think about this album, whether you're meeting it for the first time, or it's an old favourite, or an old hate even of yours. I don't necessarily reply to all of the comments that I get, but I do read every comment that I get, and I love hearing from people as to what their perspective is. I don't care whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Equally, both is very welcome. So that's it from me for now.